Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to go over this review in order to help you prepare for the test. Okay, so in this problem, it's asking you to factor x squared minus 5x plus 6. So remember, there's an invisible 1 right here in front of the x. So I'm going to put a 1 right there. And basically what you're going to do is on the side here, you're going to multiply 1 times 6, which is 6. And then you're going to go to decimals and you're going to write 6 divided by x, and then you click on the wheel, you click on the table, and you want to expand that table by clicking on the number 2 right there, and that way you'll be able to see the list. And you start the list with number 1, so we have 1 and 6, and then we have 2 and 3, and after that it comes number 3, but 3 is already part of the list, so you know you have come to the end of your list. Now you're going to focus your attention on the middle term. The middle term is 5. So we're looking for a pair of numbers that if added, subtracted, give us 5. So 1 and 6 gives us 5 if I was to subtract. And so does 2 and 3, because 2 plus 3 is also 5. So we decided that these two could be candidates. So now I focus my attention on the sign of 5 right here, or the middle term. And the sign is negative, so I'm going to come over here and I put a negative on the number on the right. In other words, the biggest numbers of each pair. Now that I put that negative there, then I ask myself, okay, I have 1 and negative 6. What does 1 have to be to give me negative 5? Would 1 have to be positive or negative? Well, we know that it will have to be positive because positive 1 minus 6 is negative 5. Then we ask the same question. What does 2 have to be in order to give me negative 5? Okay, so, well, the answer would be negative 2 because negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Then you have to remember the rules of multiplication, which is a positive times a positive equals a positive times a negative equals a negative times a positive equals a negative, and a negative times a negative equals a positive. Okay, so this rule you need to have memorized. And now that you know that, we look at this sign right here. This sign is positive, and then we ask, is a negative times a positive equals a positive? And the answer is no. That is a false statement. How about a negative times a negative? Is that equals a positive? Yes, it is. So we know that the pair that's going to work for this problem is negative 2, negative 3. So we're going to go ahead and copy the first term, which is x squared. We're going to rewrite negative 5 using the two numbers that we found, which is negative 2x minus negative 3x. And we're going to bring down the 6, positive 6. So now instead of having 3 terms, we have 4 terms. And now we're going to group them in pairs, the first 2 and the second 2. And remember, there's an invisible 1 right here. So we ask, what is the biggest number to go into 1 and 2? And if you cannot think off the top of your head, you come over here to the calculator and you write GCD 1, 2. Calculator will tell you that the biggest number to divide 1 and 2 is 1, so you put a 1. Then you ask, can I factor an x? Since this one has 2 x's and this one has 1, I can factor 1x from each term. Now that I decided what I'm going to factor, I'm going to open a parenthesis and I'm going to divide. 1 divided by 1 is 1. X squared divided by x is x. Remember, you can also think like this. I have 2 x's, 1 is being removed, 1 remains. Then I do negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. And I have 1x, 1 is being removed, none is left. In other words, x divided by x, the x disappears. Now I need to bring down that sign. Whatever sign you have right there, you need to bring it down. In this case, it's a negative. I'm going to bring that negative down. If it was a positive, I would bring down a positive. Then I'm going to do the GCD for these two terms, 3 and 6. So I'm going to come to my calculator, and I'm going to write GCD 3, 6, and the calculator tells me the biggest number to divide 3 and 6 is 3. Can I factor an x? Since 6 does not have an x, I cannot factor an x from both terms. So the only thing that I can factor is -3. So I'm going to have open parentheses, and I do the division. -3 divided by -3 is 1. I have 1x, none is being removed, so I keep the x. 6 divided by -3 is -2. And there we go. Now we have two terms. This is representing the first term, and this is the second term. And we look at what do they have in common, because I'm going to remove what they have in common inside my first parenthesis. Okay, and whatever is left is going to be on the second parenthesis. So let's see, what do they have in common? They have in common 1x minus 2. So that means I'm going to remove 1x minus 2. And if I remove 1x minus 2 from each term, I'm only left with 1x minus 3. So this would be my answer. I could also write without the 1 in the front. Okay, so the 1 is not really necessary to write because 1x is the same as x. Okay, so you can write x minus 2 times x minus 3. Or you can write 1x minus 2 times 1x minus 3. So there you go. That's the answer for our problem right here. And so we have two factors, x minus 2 and x minus 3. So let's go ahead and do the next problem. Remember, if there's no number in front of the x squared, you put a 1 right there. Then you take and multiply that 1 times the last number right there, which is 14. And we get 14. Now we want to create a list of numbers that gives us 14. So let's go ahead and clear our calculator here. And we write 14. So 1/4 divided by x. We go ahead and click the wheel, click the little table, and we'll go to number 2 and press enter multiple times to create our list. Okay, so our list is comprised of 1 and 14, 2 and 7. The next number on the list is 3, but it gives me a decimal, so I know that I'm not going to include that because I just want whole numbers. Then I have 4 and 3.5. That doesn't work. 5 and 2.6. So let's go ahead and expand that list by continuing pressing enter. 7 and 2.3. And the next number is number 7 right there. But the problem is 7 is already on the list, so I know I have come to the end of my list. Now remember, now we want to pay attention to the middle number, which is 9. Well, is there any pair here that if I add or subtract gives me 9? And it so happens that 7 and 2 gives me 9. So I select 2 and 7, and that's the only candidate. Okay, now I see that this sign is negative, so I'm going to put a negative on the biggest one, which is 7. And I ask myself, okay, now I want to focus on the sign here. This is -9. What sign would 2 have to be that when I combine with -7, I would get -9. So would the 2 have to be positive or negative? And the answer is -2, because -2 minus 7 gives me that -9 that I want. Final step is this sign right here. I need to check, is a negative times a negative equals a positive? And the answer is yes, a negative times a negative is a positive. So that means this pair will work for my factorization here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the first term, 1x squared. I'm going to break down -9 using the two numbers that I chose, which is -2x minus 7x. Very important, don't forget to put the x. Here there's no x, but when I put it here, I include the x, okay? And then you bring down the 14. All right, so I went from having a trinomial, something with 3 terms, to something that has 4. And that's exactly what I want. I want to pair them into 2 pairs. Right there. All right, now I'm going to do the GCD of 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and a calculator here. Okay, GCD. Basically, GCD gives us the biggest number to divide the two numbers that I put inside the parentheses here. So the answer is 1. Can I factor an x from these two terms? You bet. I can factor an x. And then open parentheses and perform the division. 1 divided by 1 is 1. I had 2 x's, 1 is being removed, 1 remains. Then I have -2 divided by 1 is -2. I have 1x, 1 is being removed, so I'm left with just 2. Then I bring down that sign in the middle, which is a negative, and then I do GCD between 7 and 14. And I can just hover over here and just cover the 1 and 2 that I had from the previous GCD, and I write the new number 7, 14, and the calculator tells me that the GCD is 7. Can I factor an x from these two terms? No, I can't, because 14 does not have an x. So I'm going to go ahead and open parentheses, and I perform the division. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1. I have 1x, none is being removed, so I retain the x. 14 divided by negative 7 is negative 2, and there we go. Now that I'm on this step, I'm going to open two sets of parentheses, and I'm going to ask, okay, what do they have in common? They have in common 1x minus 2, and if I remove that, what is left? What's left is 1x minus 7. And remember, you can write it like that, or you can write without the 1 in the front of the x's. Either one, it is correct. Okay, very good. So that is our second problem. All right, let's go on to the next problem. Okay, next problem again, we're doing finding the factors. So remember, you take the first number times the last. So we take 3 times 10, which equals 30. Then we're going to create a list of numbers that gives us 30. So let's go to our decimals here. Let me delete this and then write 30 divided by x. We click on the little wheel, we click the table, and we want to expand that table by clicking on number 2 and pressing enter multiple times. So that list will increase. And we want to start the list with number 1. So the first set of numbers is 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. 4 doesn't work because, as you can see, 4 is a decimal. So we go on to 5. So 5 and 6. And the next number on the list is 6 and 5, but 6 is already part of the list, so I know I have come to the end of my list. Now I'm going to focus my attention on the middle number, which is a negative 17 or just 17. And I'm looking for a pair of numbers that give me 17 if I was to add or subtract. And basically here 2 and 15 gives me 17. The sign here is negative, so I'm going to put a negative on the biggest. And if negative 15, so if 15 is negative, what does 2 have to be to give me negative 17? The answer is negative 2. Final check, is a negative times a negative equals a positive? The answer is yes. So that means I'm going to bring down the 3x squared. I'm going to rewrite negative 15 using the numbers that I found. 2x minus 15x. And then I'm going to bring down the 10. Now I'm going to pair them up. And then I'm going to use my GCD. So let's go ahead and go to GCD. So GC 3 and 2. And the calculator gives me 1. So I'm going to come over here and I put 1. Can I factor an x? You bet. I can factor an x. So then you divide 3 by 1 is 3. I have 2 x's. 1 is being removed, so that means 1 stays. Negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. I had 1x. 1 is being removed, so none is left. I'm going to bring down the negative. So I bring down the negative. And what is the GCD between 15 and 10? So let's come over here and change to 15, comma 10. Calculator tells me that the GCD is 5. Can I factor an x? No, I can't. So negative 15 divided by negative 5 is 3. X. 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. What do they have in common? They have in common 3x minus 2. And if I remove that, what do they have left? They have left 1x minus 5. Now please notice that you can write it like that, or you can write the 1x, instead of 1x you can write just x. So these two answers would be acceptable. Okay, very well. Let's go on to the next problem. And the next problem is the special case. Okay, whenever you have just a binomial like this squared, and you notice that this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square, and there's a minus right there in the middle, that means you can, instead of doing all this, you can just go, what is the square root of 49? Well, 7. What is the square root of x squared? X. Copy the negative. What is the square root of 81? 9. Okay, and please remember, if you don't remember the perfect squares, you can always go here in the calculator. So let me demonstrate. So I'm doing the square root of 49, so just write 49. And if it's a whole number, you know it's a perfect square. Same thing with 81, square root of 81, I see that is a 9. And if that occurs, then, like I said, you take the square root of the first, square root of the second with a minus in between, and then you copy it again, but with a plus. So 7x plus 9. And there we go. That's the factorization of the special case. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay. The next one, I see the word equivalent. Okay. And if you see that and you notice that everyone has just one letter, which is very different from the next problem, which has x and y. If he only has one letter like this problem, you know that decimals is going to be your friend. So let me demonstrate here. Let me clear things out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the question on the first box. Negative 64x squared, and then arrow to the right, plus 24x. Okay, so that produces that graph right there, which I can zoom in. And then I'm going to enter the first multiple choice, which is 8x parentheses 8x squared plus 3. And if you notice, I got a red graph which does not match the black one, which is the one that is from my original problem. So I know that the first multiple choice doesn't work. So I'm going to turn it off. See how can I turn it off right there? And I'm going to try the next one, which is negative 4x. And open parentheses, and I write 16x squared minus 6, close parentheses. And again, I got a graph that is totally different than the one that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I'm going to go on to the next one, which is negative 4x parentheses 16x plus 6, close parentheses. And again, I got a totally different graph right there. The green one is very different than the black one right there. So I'm going to go on to the next question, next multiple choice, which is negative 8x, open parentheses, 8x minus 3. And notice right there, we got a match. The purple is equivalent, is the same as the black one. So if I turn on and turn off, I see that they exactly one on top of the other. So without a doubt, I know the answer is letter D. So we love this kind of questions. Anytime you see the word equivalent and you see that you're only using one letter, that would be the best way to go. Now what happens if I see equivalent, but I see two letters? Then decimal is not going to be my friend because it won't be able to handle two letters. So what I'm stuck with is to work my problem backwards. Okay, I'm going to take the whatever's outside and multiply by the whatever's inside the parentheses. And if I multiply this, I see that I'm going to get 14x to the third y to the third. And right there, I can tell that this is not going to be the same because I have x to the third and the problem says x to the second. So I know letter A is out of the picture. So let's go ahead and try with letter B. If I do that, I'm going to get 14, and then x times x is x squared. Then I have y times y second is y to the third. So if you notice, I was already is already matching. But let's continue. Then I have negative 35. And then I have x times x to the fifth is going to give me x to the sixth, 6. And I know that it's already wrong because it's supposed to have x to the fifth. So I'm going to cancel that one. The next one I have 7 times 2, which is 14. I have x squared times no x here, so that means I have x squared. And then I have y times y squared, which is y to the third. So things are looking good because I have a match right there, but let's continue. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. Then I have x squared times x cubed is x to the fifth. And I have y times nothing there, so I'll keep the y. And notice right there, I got a match. Letter C is my answer. So there you go. This concludes this review for this unit right here, which had to do with factorization. So I hope this video was helpful, and now you can better prepare for your test or retest. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.